The most offensive F word you know is fear. A badass becomes fearless. Flipping the format on the fear of failure. Badass is an acronym, and each Wednesday, Kelly shares tips, tools, and information about how you can become licensed to be badass too. Turn up your energy with Wednesday Wisdom. Here again is Kelly Orchard. What's on your badass soundtrack?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Mr. Ocean. What's on my badass soundtrack? Because I'm actually adding some tunes to it. I'll fill you in on that, at the end of the podcast when we do the music part of Wednesday Wisdom. Hey, everybody, this is Kelly Orchard, the badass certifier on Wednesday Wisdom. Yes, today's episode publishes late today. Usually, I try to do at least a day or two in advance, and when I first started I was trying to do the whole month in advance, but I actually like doing it more on the fly. It seems to work out better for me, mainly just because everything I talk about is topical, as far as like, hey man, this just happened today or even yesterday, rather than hey, the other day. Today it's running late because I've been juggling a lot, and so today's topic, we're talking about what do you do when you can't remain consistent, but you want to be consistent. So that's what we're going to do. That's why I'm publishing it late, because I haven't been able to be exactly as consistent with the podcast for Successful Badassery as I was before, or as I would like to be. And, a lot of people might be asking, well, what's going on? Why can't you be consistent? Wednesday Wisdom is always dedicated to skills and drills for certified badasses, and the entire month of September, I almost said January. It's nowhere even in my view, January, but I almost said the word January. The entire month of September is dedicated to the A in badass, the first A, which means attitude is everything. And you need a positive one if you want to succeed in anything. And so, right now I am maintaining a positive attitude, even though I am not able to remain consistent, or positively consistent. Why is that? Okay, so that's why today's late. I would love to be consistent with this. It was part of my upbringing, part of my training. When you start something, you start a project, you stick to it. And especially when it comes to marketing, or even something like this, a podcast, I would want my audience, you, to know that I'm consistent, and you'd be able to count on when the podcast is going to publish. But the world is just not the way it was even a year or a year and a half ago. And it's definitely not the way it was, when I first started out in the business world in radio, where, hey, you got to show up on time for your show or it's not consistent and you get fired. Same thing with, sales and advertising clients. I had to be consistent and show up, or I wasn't going to get the sale, or the relationship would be broken, or I wouldn't get the copy change in time, or be able to run the radio commercials consistently. There's a job title called continuity, which is basically keeping things continuous and making sure that everything is organized and remains consistent. And that's one of the job tasks of many that I had, was continuity for the traffic and the billing and the traffic. Gosh, when you're thinking radio, we're not talking about like street traffic. We're talking about the traffic means how you schedule your advertising and your music and everything else, and the promos and all that other stuff. That's traffic. So traffic and continuity. So consistency is kind of a professional calling card for me. So I've been really having to cope with not being as consistent as I want to. It is just not possible. And I was wondering, how do you manage that? Listen, some of the people that I work with, whether they're clients or they're, associates here at Michelle's Place, I'm seeing that they're also struggling with the demands that happen every single day or every single week. And it is hard to remain consistent. Here's a couple things that went on with me. I'm caregiving for my parents. They're both 83 years old. In fact, my dad will be 84 come December. And they both have multiple medical issues that are, really just age related, a little bit of dementia. My dad's got Parkinson's. My mom's got some heart issues. Well, my dad's got heart issues. I'm not going to go on and on and on. They have their privacy, but it is typical age related stuff, nothing monumental, but there's two of them. And, when you have that cognitive decline, you're not really as capable anymore of taking care of your own affairs. And so this is one of the things that it was managed for a while, just fine with my adult children. We were all kind of tag teaming with the caregiving, but things changed for all of us, and so I've had to pick up some of the slack while my daughter wasn't able to be as consistent as she would like to be because she had other family priorities that have caused her to be focused on that. So as you can see, it's like things have kind of snowballed for me, and that is why I haven't been able to be as consistent with some things. And so, but this is something I had to learn also, because I had to look at this and realize, okay, well, the podcast has to take the side burner from all of my other projects, as far as, my psychotherapy clients have to come first, as well as my family has to come first. So the podcast isn't even, on the radar of priorities, although it's very important to me. And I'm wondering, what things are you not able to do, and how do you cope with that? How are you dealing with that? Are you giving yourself some grace? Are you giving yourself some forgiveness? Are you kind of assessing what is happening in your current day-to-day activities? One of the things that I had to do was, I had multiple doctor's appointments. My dad needed a surgical procedure done, nothing too drastic, but that meant a lot of, preoperative appointments and follow-ups and phone calls that I don't have the bandwidth really to do, because I'm in therapy all day. And so I needed to hire somebody that can handle some of those tasks. And I'll tell you, it's like today was the day that we took care of all the details with the new caregiver. Meanwhile, I'm still juggling my parents with some doctor's appointments that had to get taken care of. So I rearranged my schedule. I've got clients here and there. So I'm doing everything I can. But here's the thing is that I also know, and I tell my clients all the time, so I practice what I preach. I am not so overwhelmed that I won't take time out to rest. I know I've needed the rest as well. I've had to kind of allow myself to slow down and move at a slower pace. And that's actually good. So in order to work on this podcast, I'm finding I have to, dedicate myself to a different mindset. I have to maintain that positive attitude and be okay if I don't have time to get here, because a couple of the things that have happened during this adjustment period is, for the first time in I'm thinking 25 years, my home office is not in my home anymore. It's here at Michelle's place. That means my big beast of a computer, my microphone, my headphones, my podcasting equipment, it's all here. So even when I have downtime at home, I'm not doing my podcast because I'd have to come into work to do it. So this is a big adjustment for me. And also moving into, Michelle's place has had its disadvantages and its advantages. Now, the advantages here is I'm no longer isolated in my work. Once I walk out of my door in this office, there is a entire 10,000 square foot building full of different types of people running around, and it's awesome. And it's just given me a little more visibility and an opportunity to open up new things to my professional world. But meanwhile, home life has had some significant adjustments that I've had to make, and so these are some of the details of that's what's going on, and why I wanted today, as you rediscover who you are, it's okay to, this is my word of the year, to show yourself some grace when you're not being able to be as consistent as you maybe would intend yourself to be. Now, I'm not saying quit. Believe me, look at me right here. Our word Wednesday Wisdom is getting done. It is. And that's just, by the grace of God, actually. But, I had an appointment that canceled. I already had been working on the script because I kind of woke up early this morning with thoughts on my mind. And the thoughts that was on my mind this morning was, oh, man, I really like to be professional with the podcast and make sure that I'm consistent with it and get it out there and published for, the 5 of you that listen. It's a little more than that. It's like 7. But thank you for listening twice, if that's what you're doing. I'm joking, but you get what I'm talking about. So this morning I woke up early and my mind just would not shut down. I know that happens with a lot of my clients too, the sleeplessness or the waking up in the middle of the night. I'm big on journaling. It's like whatever is on your mind, write it down. Your brain will thank you for it. The reason why is because once you write it down, your brain doesn't have to start continuing to recall, and to help you remember when you wake up that you need to take care of this. Once you write it down, guess what? Your brain's like, oh, okay, we can check out now. So that's what I did this morning. My head would not stop. My brain wouldn't stop. And one of them was this podcast. So 4:00 this morning, you bet, I'm writing down some notes about this. And what it was about being consistent and allowing yourself. That's the second day in Badass, by the way, is allow and awareness. Allowing yourself to understand that you kind of need to step back for a minute, and maybe something needs to be put on a side burner. It's not meaning that you're giving it up. A lot of my projects I have on side burners. You have no idea how many novels and short stories that I have started that are now just sitting in a folder until I have, the kind of mental free time and emotional free time that I need. But having my parents come and live with me, although was somewhat expected, came at a really strange time. So even though I was somewhat prepared, I wasn't entirely prepared. More adjustments, so it's really important that it's okay to take a break now and then. There's going to be rise and falls, just like the tide. That's what the tide does. It rises and it falls. And you'll find that you'll have a healthier balance and therefore a healthier mindset when you show yourself some grace and go with the flow, knowing what's important and what you can put off until a week or 2 or 3 or 6 months down the line. Emotional intelligence and having that awareness and the need that you need to adjust your attitude is so important. Communication is also critical. You need to know, what do you need to communicate? Do you need to ask somebody for time? Do you need to, specifically say, hey, I need downtime, like alone time. Sometimes I know that I have to share that with my parents when I get off of work from a long day of therapy. Of course, they're waiting for me to get home because they want to visit with me. I've had to set that boundary, and I've had to communicate with them. These are not the nights for me to be visiting after a long day of therapy. How about in the morning, or we can put it on the side? So what is it that you need to communicate with somebody, whether it's your boss or it's a family member or any other loved one? Do you need something to communicate because you're feeling like you're kind of out of the flow? In a minute, I have an article about finding something, about communicating in the workforce. So here's something that I had on the back burner. I put it on the back burner last Christmas, and now it's resurfacing again, and that's an RV purchase. I love the RV lifestyle, and last year I was looking into actually acquiring a motorhome for me because I love to travel. My daughter and son-in-law, like I told you, they've recently relocated to Texas, and they were traveling the country, and they hadn't relocated to Texas yet. This was just kind of like a discussion, but I knew it's like, well, I could join them. I love going to Sedona. I do love camping. It is my favorite form of travel. I prefer it over flying any day. We have a beautiful country and lots of space. So I'm revisiting this whole thing, but I stopped for a while. It was okay to take a break from pursuing the motorhome, but now it's back on the front burner with a revised plan though. Now it's no longer a motorhome that I want to buy. I want to buy a truck with a trailer to tow. Why? Well, because I have learned more about going to Sedona than I did a year ago. And when I'm camping, I'd like to have a truck or a vehicle that I can unhitch and go find another hiking trail or go, get a treatment or whatever. So when you're in a motorhome, you're kind of landlocked unless you're going to rent a car or tow a car. And I also need a second vehicle. I still need a vehicle that I can cruise mom and dad in because although the Badass whip or the Badass Mustang is a badass whip and they don't mind driving in it, the back seat is just not feasible. If you've ever had a Mustang, you just know the back seat's a waste of time. So unless you have a small child who will sit crisscross applesauce and doesn't need any leg room, that's the only way that the back seat works. So I have to get a vehicle that I can haul my parents around in so that I don't use the Mustang as much as I have been because I gave up my car a year ago. So lots going on, and that's why I just felt I wanted to talk about consistency and remaining in your passion, but meanwhile allowing yourself, having that awareness, that emotional intelligence that you need to adjust your attitude to remain positive, and sometimes that means giving yourself a little bit of grace. This is my birthday month. That's right. Next Wednesday is actually my birthday, and I'm celebrating it by going to Sedona with some friends of mine. This is going to be a different trip. I've taken a few by myself, and I've camped out with my family, but this is the first time I'm going with some badass friends. In fact, 2 of them are actually certified badasses more than one time over. That's right. So I'm having a badass Sedona trip for my birthday. One of the things that I have done for several years now is a word of the year. And this year it comes up. I share with this earlier on about how to do it. I will share it again at the end of the year. So if anybody wants to follow and do focus on one word for the year, I do promise you this. It is very impactful. Because what you do is you focus just on the word, not a phrase, not a goal, not a anything else, but just the word, and then how you apply that word to your life and how it might be applying to you and the lessons that you're learning while you're applying that particular word. The first year that I did this was several years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. I wasn't very pleased with the word that came up for me. It did come up through prayer. You don't look in the dictionary and pick a word. It's something that is revealed to you as you start to think about what should my word be? What can my word be? You meditate on it, you pray on it, you ask the universe, whatever your belief of your higher system is. Mine is prayer. I ask God and Jesus, give me my word. And the first year was humility. I wasn't too fond of that word. Humility? What the heck? But I did learn a lot that year. And then it was allow, and then love, and then trust. And this year, it's grace. So I ask for grace from people when I'm not exactly on my best, target as far as like goal setting. Like even here, can you show me grace for Wednesday wisdom being late? But also, grace with doctor's offices and making appointments and being late for appointments or not having all the paperwork or not knowing all of the answers. I am receiving tons of grace. And, asking permission, or not permission, asking for forgiveness for, just being a little overwhelmed. And I'm getting grace, and I'm asking. So you see, that's the communication, and it's also the word. So start thinking about this. We're getting into October now. So as we start to round out the year, which we're not there yet, I got other stuff for you coming up in the next few months, but I will do more on the word of the year starting in December, probably like as we get close to New Year's. When people make New Year's resolutions, you will discover that I don't believe in New Year's resolutions. I actually want you to say no to a New Year's resolution. Why? Why not just start now? Whatever it is that you need to do to improve your life, do you really need to wait until a new year to do it? So I say no to New Year's resolutions, but I do say yes to setting goals and having a vision and a plan. So if you have to wait for a new year to do that, that's great. But if you want to start September 23rd, that's tomorrow, then let's go. I'm ready for you. And you start now by just continue to listen to the Badass podcast. All right. So skills and drills to improve your mindset. So I found an article, this is from entrepreneur.com, about 9 best practices to improve your communication skills and become a more effective leader. So I'm just going to kind of run through this for you. Be an active listener. And I love that. Active listening. That's going to be the podcast on Monday with Krista Hogue. She hopped in the Mustang, and it's sort of funny. She hopped in the Mustang the same day that I recorded it with Terry Sue Parker. But Terry Sue Parker kind of jumped the gun and was talking about it on social media already, right after we recorded. So I asked for grace with Krista, and I put her on for next Monday because Terry Sue had already been promoting it, and people were going to be expecting that. And anyway, so I'm grateful that Krista was willing to wait on that, because being an active listener is one of the topics that she talks about her badass tip. So according to late American author and businessman Stephen Covey, most people do not listen with the intent to understand; they listen with the intent to reply. So one of the best ways for communication skills to be a good leader is practice active listening. And that is kind of hard, but you can be trained. Just shut your mouth and don't respond. Let them say whatever they got to say, and then ask, and then repeat what they've said. You'd be amazed at how much you don't hear when you repeat what you think they said. That's a big one. And then let them correct you if you heard wrong, and be okay with that. Ask effective questions. How many times do you shy away from asking questions? Perhaps you fear asking the wrong questions or looking stupid or think too much about how the other person or the team will experience or interpret you. Been there, radio personality. I've asked a ton of stupid questions, but there is no stupid question, okay? These are totally normal thoughts and feelings that come up. But when questions aren't asked, there is no way to get to the core of the situation. How about understand and know your audience? This is one of the things that I actually specialize in now. It's important to research to get to know whom you will be addressing. Each audience is different. Engage with your audience, asking questions and turning it into what could be of value to the people in it. Now, when this article is talking about audience, so we're not talking about performing on a show or doing a podcast or like me knowing my audience. But when you're in a business meeting or it's your family or it's your subordinates or it's your superiors, know your audience. Know who you're talking to. I don't treat the people in my grief workshops the same as I would in my badass certification class. I know my audience. Also, one of the things I do when I do a badass certification class and I'm looking out at the audience and the people who are there, I look at them and I even determine their age and the gender. If there's a lot of men in the group, I'll play something classic rock. If there's more women in the group, I might play something danceable or fun or emotional. Knowing the audience, it's like not that women don't like classic rock, but men will definitely they'll react more to a rock song than they would some sort of emotional song, even though the emotions are important. But the thing is that I know my audience so that I get their attention, and that's what you want to do to communicate. Listen to nonverbal communication. That's another tip for you. Much of our communication is nonverbal, and there are many studies out there that prove this. You may listen to the words that are being spoken, but are you listening and aware of the nonverbal cues that are being given? Researchers found that tone of voice, facial, and body gestures provide critical information. Crossing of the arms, looking away, or positioning the body and feet away from another person are telling signs of not being engaged, open, or receptive. Over communicate effectively. In the face of society's fast pace or instances of high anxiety, over communication must be effectively utilized. Keep it simple, sync early and often, and leave room for others to ask questions for better understanding. Begin and end powerfully. People remember how you start off within the communication and how you end it. Whether it's a one-on-one conversation or a presentation to a huge audience, you'll be remembered for how you begin and end. So give something to remember. You might begin or end with a question, a powerful statistic, a quote, or a relevant story. I like to end with a hug, honestly, whether it's a client or it's or whatever. It's like, can we hug this out? It definitely makes an impact, not with everybody, and I am only digressing a little bit. And then, timing is everything. Remember that effective communicators are able to utilize their intuition, feelings, and emotional intelligence to feel out their audience. So asking a different question or using an example or a story to make a point, reiterating a point, or knowing when it's time to move on are all critical contributing factors to the timing of communication. Also remember, it's important to get comfortable being uncomfortable. That means it keeps you on your toes and allows you to lean in on your leadership skills and navigate through difficult conversations. And also remember this, the 9th tip, have fun. Don't be boring. Research and studies that were done in different groups of students show that laughter and humor can improve a learning experience, lighten the mood, lower anxieties, and make experiences more pleasant. Be aware of your audience may need at the moment. Sometimes a little laughter and humor can go a long way. Damn, I'm really good at that. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that word. Oh, wait, this isn't radio. I don't have to worry about what I say. It's true. I don't, but I don't like to do that. But anyway, so I love that article. So that was found in Entrepreneur Magazine. I will put the link in the show notes so that you know that that's where the resource came from. And if you wanted to look at it later or share it with a friend, or you could just share this podcast with a friend, and hey, that would be great. So that is 9 best practices to improve your communication skills and become a more effective leader. And when we're talking about that leader, that's at home, that's at work, that's at school, that's on the soccer team, it's with your friends. What kind of leader do you want to be? All right, so as we wrap up this Wednesday wisdom, I know that went so fast. I kind of like it that way. Music. I want to end with some music for your badass soundtrack, because Bobby Ocean was asking me at the very beginning of this, what's on your badass soundtrack? I do have a few new songs that I've added, but right now I'm working on the soundtrack for Sedona. Now, I'm not trying to create the soundtrack pre-Sedona, but there were some requests that my friends have made. So it looks like it's going to be, it's an eclectic group, because we've got some classic rock, and we've got some blues, and I don't know, maybe even a little bit of disco for this trip. I don't know. I really want to have a little dance party with them. But, we're going to be hiking, and we're going to be enjoying each other's company and cooking meals together, and maybe getting some treatments. I think we're going to book one of those pink Jeep tours, and it's going to be a great time. So I will let you know. Next Wednesday I'm leaving. So next Wednesday is my birthday, and I'll be leaving for Sedona. So the following Wednesday, the first Wednesday in October, I will give you the 411 on the badass soundtrack for Sedona, for my Sedona crew. And that's that. So Friday, Fruitful Friday, we are focused on having an extraordinary life on Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day. And I've been noticing a lot of people are tuning into the Apple a Day. So those of you who have discovered Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day, thank you. If you haven't, it's on the same podcast platform that you've discovered the Successful Badassery podcast. You just got to search my name, Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day. Look for the Apple logo. They are 60 seconds on wisdom, success, and personal growth. And I'll have more of that for you on Friday for Fruitful Friday, and Krista Hogue in the Mustang on Mustang Monday. And who knows what's coming up for the rest of the month, but it is my birthday month. So I'm kind of celebrating all month with just little things here and there. And Sedona is going to wrap up my quest of vacations for the holiday, for the year. Actually, no, it's not, because I do have to plan a trip to Texas to go see my daughter, who's going to have a baby in March, but I want to see her sometime during the holiday period. So lots of things going on, which is why today's topic was about how do you cope when you're not able to be consistent even though you want to be. The word is grace. Give yourself some grace, and give others grace when they can't be consistent with you, because we're all struggling with a lot of different variety of things right now, and we're all doing the best we can, at least those of us who are trying to live a successfully badass life. Isn't that right, Mr. Ocean?
Who wouldn't want to be a certified badass? You know what doesn't get old? Being called a badass. Friday again, we turn up the energy. Tune in and tune up. Be bold, be brave, be confident, be badass.